No amount of training as a student can prepare you for the reality of clinical practice. My name is Karen. I'm an experienced clinical psychologist, and today I'd like to share with you a story about something that happened to me as an intern. I'm sitting in an office attached to the maximum security unit, attached to the psychiatric hospital where I did my training. There's an armed guard at the door, and he and I are both staring at my patient with huge eyes because to all intents and purposes, this guy is completely unconscious, and I have no idea what to do. In South Africa, any person who is suspected of having some kind of mental illness or some kind of disability while they're awaiting to stand trial is sent to a psychiatric hospital for assessment to make sure they're competent or fit to stand trial. So people would come to the psychiatric hospital and stay for 30 days to be assessed. They come from a prison and they enter the maximum security unit, which is basically a prison inside a hospital. Some of the people have been charged with small crimes like misdemeanors or theft or whatever it might be, but others would be standing trial for very serious crimes like assault or rape, murder. As an intern, I'm allocated a caseload of a certain number of patients, and it is my job to interview them almost every day for 30 days and do whatever assessments are required to find out if they are fit and competent to stand trial or not. And maybe I'll run some assessment tests if there is evidence that that would be helpful. But most of the time I do something that's called interrogative interviewing, which sounds intimidating, but is actually just a case of sitting with somebody for 30 to 60 minutes every single day and asking them more or less the same questions and seeing how their account of themselves and how their account of what happened holds up. I'm supposed to work with an interpreter because usually the patients speak a different language to me, and English is very much a second or even a third language. But most of the time, it's just me and the guard, and I muddle through as best I can. MSU is a big area with a number of buildings, and I am sitting in one of the small offices attached to one of the sections, and each patient is brought to me, sometimes in handcuffs, but usually just by the guard. The guard then stands at the door with his gun ready to take action if there should be some kind of problem. But most of the time the guard just stands there and he looks extremely bored. But today he does not look bored. Today I have his full attention. At this point, I'm fairly new to MSU and I really want to do a good job of assessing this patient. But I'm also a trainee psychologist and I'm idealistic. I want to help people. I want to minimally give this person an experience of being heard and seen and recognized as a fellow human being. My patient is a young man, probably in his early 20s, and when he comes in, he looks so nervous that it's really difficult to communicate with him. We have the language barrier and he is super stressed out. So I ask him if he would like to try a relaxation technique, and he says yes. So I get him to close his eyes and focus on his breathing. But we have done barely a few breaths, and I'm speaking in a slow, calm voice, and I'm telling him to notice his breathing and to slow down and let everything settle. And suddenly, this guy just drops into a deep trance. His head lolls over onto his chest. His entire body completely relaxes and he's out. And I'm in a panic. I look at the guard and the guard looks at me, and neither of us have really any idea what to do, but I'm the professional here and I realize that I have no choice but to keep going. So I make a couple of suggestions that this young man will be relaxed when he wakes up, he will feel comfortable, and he will be able to talk to me. And then I tell him that he is at the bottom of a flight of stairs, 10 steps. And I'm going to count him up as he walks up each step. And when he gets to number 1, he's going to open his eyes. And I start at 10 and I count him up. And he does not look in any way as if he's beginning to stir. In fact, he's like ever more deep into his trance. We get to number 3, nothing. Get to number 2, I say to him, and when we get to number 1, you're going to wake up. And I say 1, and I clap my hands hard. And his eyes open. And I am so relieved. The guard and I just grin at each other, and the patient does in fact seem more relaxed. And I pull myself together and I carry on with the interview. And I do not use a relaxation technique with another patient for a very long time. In my next session, I'm going to tell you what happened in my first ever group therapy session. It was an absolute disaster.